Sanders almost run through Huddersfield Town's Premier League timer. They knew it was coming. They know it's nearly here now. Confirmation of Championship football for next season. There goes the final whistle. Huddersfield Town are down, and down on the ground where their Premier League adventure started in August of 2017.
And the blood will dry underneath my nails,
from the spot.
and the wind will rise up to fill my sails. So you can't doubt, you can't hate, but I know no matter what it takes, I'm coming home. I'm coming home. Tell the world that I'm coming home. Let the rain wash away all the pain of yesterday.
Danny Ward changed! Danny Ward changed!
Coming home, tell the world I'm coming. Still far away.
Looking forward, DePatra's forward, DePatra's got the better of the and Laurent DePatra scores! Laurent DePatra scores!
For the dawn, so you can't doubt.
Aaron Boy! 1-0 Huddersfield Town! 1-0 Huddersfield Town against Manchester United!
No matter what it takes, I'm coming home.
Quadra!
Tell the world I'm coming home.
Aaron Boy slow strike!
Let the
2-0
rain
Town!
wash
A double for
away
Aaron Boy!
all the
Leeds
pain
again straight to
of
Boy again to shoot!
yesterday.
What a goal, Aaron Boy! An absolute thunderbolt! Delivered all the way from
My
Australia!
mistakes, I'm coming home, coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home.
Christopher Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
It was a long time coming, but not too soon for some fans, as Huddersfield Town slide back into the Championship with an unwanted record of the joint earliest relegation. We'll discuss the Palace games and the implications of that defeat. It's also that time of year when football fans turn from political strategists on multinational trade to high-level CFOs as the football finances are released. We're no different here at Andy Takes That Chance, and we'll be looking at the financial data with the help of Simon Taff and Dan Fowler. Joining me in the box seat today is the Whoppinator, Neil Wayne, while sadly Cozzy is nursing a relegation hangover and Danny is studying for his Level 1 accountancy exam.
Good evening.
However, what Cozzy has done is he's sent in his thoughts via the power of WhatsApp. So what I'll do is I'll loop those in now and see what he made of the weekend at Crystal Palace.
So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Our time in the Premier League is over. Done into town style, really. Memories a little bit for me of, was it 2001 when we went down? But obviously totally different from the sense that this goose has been cooked for a long time out rather than the last day of that season. But it needed a bizarre turn of results and Huddersfield Town to do what Huddersfield Town do. And that's, mess it up and down we go. I wasn't at the game on Saturday, watched it on a stag do in Portugal. I was in a bar where every game was on the screen, so you knew what was going on. Obviously watching ours and noticing the other games going in, and you saw the early goal for Burnley and you just had a feeling, didn't you? I think that, could this be the day that it happens? But I thought, we did what we've done for most of the season. We looked, good on the ball. We got in some good areas, but again, never looked like scoring. It never looked like, for me, getting that first goal. Not clinical enough, it's as simple as that. typically the best 2 chances fall to the left back. Yeah. And obviously Cameron Grant had a big chance as well. But yeah, you just knew that for me, Palace were going to, with their pace and power, going to create something, and they were going to have their time in the second half. I did feel that, and then lo and behold, on one of the other screens in the bar, a big cheer. Southampton fans there cheering, and you thought, here we go. And then straight after that, penalty away. Again, the pace, too much for Bakuna, and yeah, that was it. We were done, and I have to say, I felt a bit emotional in the last 10 minutes. It was very sad, just kind of, even though we obviously know we've been going on for a long, long time, just it's kind of sinking in, really, that was it. It was done, and done in March, which was quite, kind of embarrassing, really, but just felt a bit sad, really, and kind of thinking, if a fan is, not sad about a relegation, then I don't think you're a fan, really. And even though we've been down for some time, totally different to some of the kind of the last day jobs where we've been down, and yeah, as it was sinking in, Palace got the second, and kind of the beIN Sports guys were coming on saying Huddersfield was going. I'm really gutted. It kind of took me 5-10 minutes to kind of come to terms with it again, and fair credit again to the supporters that were there. They were fantastic. Did the club proud, which is more than can be said for some of our players. During it sounds like the off season, so the international break, and fair credit to Yancey for doing what he did. There was rumours, I was hearing on Thursday, that he wasn't gonna give the Danes a chance to play on Saturday or even be involved in a squad, and kind of that became a little bit true. I think when we all saw Jonas Lossel's Instagram, if you're on that platform, having a day out in London, and yeah, I've got to tip my hat off to Sievert. I think, he's doing it his way. He's probably upsetting a few people, but that's what needs to be done. For me, some of them players have let us all down, let themselves down, let everyone down, and there's going to be a lot of casualties. I really like kind of his attitude. It's not his fault whatsoever. I never really expected much of what we've got, really. Yeah, we've won one game. We've got a draw, haven't we? And the rest of us that we've defeated, and we know his problems. We know we just can't, score. We're not clinical enough, and I think, he's given a lot of these youngsters a go, which is really, really good, and I really like his attitude. Really warm to the guy, so I'm 100% behind him. I'm really chuffed that Dean came out with a statement on Monday that he did. I think we can, kind of build with what we've got. I think it'd be stupid to change it all again. I thought that Times article was very bizarre, based on I don't know what, pathetic. I don't know whether there's been a leak from one of the Danes or whatever or whether the guy's just seen, hang on a minute, he's not playing some of the senior players, and just come out with a story. I thought it was rubbish. Glad that Dean's kind of quashed that, and we can kind of move on with Sievert. But yeah, it's so disappointing. It's kind of, obviously sunk in since Saturday, and we all knew we were going anyway, but I think it just so gutting, really. We stayed up against all the odds, and it just needed some clever signings, and I'm afraid I think the summer's done for us. The signings has been awful. There's no point beating around the bush, and yeah, we've not scored enough goals, but we could never have seen Depoitre and drawing a blank all season, and Mounier, who's been disappointing as well, if we're being honest. I think there's going to be so many changes in the summer. I think the team that trots out in August will be so much different, because without saying them, well, the one that kind of trotted away from the Premier League on Saturday, I think supporters, though, have bought into everything. Again, next season, we've got a fantastic season card, turnout and that as well. And it sounds like the reserve kind of list is going to be taken up, so we've got that platform there. The financial results were really positive, and that came out. Obviously, we've not thrown ridiculous money at it, and we didn't do much in January, which, looking back now, probably the right thing to do. But just felt sad on Saturday that, yeah, it was kind of the end, and to be relegated, in March, it's bad. There's no point beating around the bush for me. The last 6 games, more pre-season games, but I'm really warming to see that he's winning me over. I'm feeling that we're doing it a little bit different. We're a bit more positive. front foot. Obviously, this is not with much of his men in. He's doing it his way. I love his interviews. I think he's very honest, very upbeat. And, yeah, there's been a lot said, we've seen on social media from the fans. And we're relegated with being embarrassed. 14 points, the brickbats are going to be flying. Obviously, the incident with Sean Jarvis, and, no doubt you boys have talked about it today on the pod, but, yeah, we've gone down. You can't beat around the bush. The fans aren't going to be happy on that as well, and it's just such a shame. But I think we've just got to think, we've got to enjoy the ride that is Huddersfield Town. We know what it's like. This is what we're about. It's never a dull season. We're either doing something, going up or going down, or dramatic last gasp relegation battles, and I won't want it any other way, to be honest with you. And I'm ready, to go again in August. Hopefully, we can finish the season maybe with another win and some more positive performances. Maybe some of the younger guys getting a go. I don't have really any anger for it. I'm just sad with the Lossell situation. I thought, I think Zanka's played his cards most of the season. To me, he's not been, tuned in. Billing, really disappointing how that's kind of panned out. I thought his performances were picking up. We were talking him up on the pod, but I just felt, in recent weeks and months, he's not been good. And yeah, obviously if he's got himself a move, then good luck to him. But Lossell, really disappointed. I thought, I'm not naive enough not to think that players talk or agents are doing deals, behind the scenes and stuff. But yeah, disappointing. I thought he'd bought into the Huddersfield way, but I suppose you can't blame him for getting his best deal. It's modern day football. But fair play, see that if it's not going to be the next season, then let's give guys a chance that might be. But yeah, just summing up for me, just a sad day really to go. I thought the fans did us proud. Some of the players that have come in have done us proud, I think, since kind of December when we know that we've been out of it. But just hope that, everyone gets behind Jan Sievert, maybe a new owner again, rumours and what have you. So it could be much change to the Huddersfield Town on and off the pitch in August, ready to do it all again. But yeah, thanks to the Memories Premier League, there's a lot of miss about you. There's a lot of will miss about you, but Huddersfield Town's for life and not for, just the Premier League up their town.
Okay, those are the thoughts of Richard Kosmala, so we'll move on with the rest of it, Neil. So anybody is interested in the song from the opening, that's a cover by Rena Cahoon, who you can find on YouTube. So, Neil, Palace 2, Huddersfield Town 0. The second earliest relegation in Premier League history, I think, by one day, and joint with 6 games left with Derby. Personally, if we were ever going to be relegated, I didn't really want us to do it by being an answer to an embarrassing quiz question, but there we go. It is what it is. Relegation confirmed?
It's been confirmed since December, let's be honest. We've just been sort of treading water until the actual R appears in the league tables.
And now it's here.
It is, and it's, it's sad to say, but it's fully deserved.
So what I'm doing this week is I'm going to mix in the Twitter questions that we sent out. So I'll be throwing them in at different points during the podcast. And the first one that came through was from your buddy Ben Thorns, and he's said the club attitude. He says he thinks Cozzy has said this before, but did the club really have the fight to stay in the Premier League long term? Or was a defeatist attitude there from May onwards?
You could argue it's been there, I wouldn't say from May, but you could argue it's been there since the start of the season.
I'd argue
the shocking start at City, followed by the Chelsea game. Then there was all the big build-up from the club about the season starts now for the Cardiff game at home, which obviously we've just played 2 games. Charlotte season started on those. We took points off both of those teams last season, so it's all been a bit. Whole season's been a bit tepid.
I'd argue that attitude has been there since 2012. It's always kind of like bubbled underneath, whereby there's always a bit of a Huddersfield Town feeling, and it comes from I think people constantly downplaying Huddersfield. It's annoying. People constantly downtread on Huddersfield, and it gets tiring sticking up for yourselves all the time. I think we sometimes play up to the "we don't belong here" mantra sometimes.
The only time that actually stopped was when obviously Wagner came in, and he turned it into a positive thing.
He did.
That everyone sort of jumped on the back of, and
that can only last so long.
Yeah,
can't it?
It made that work for us, but the mentality from that needed to change at the start of this season after we'd done the impossible in staying up.
I think maybe it was amazing that we stayed up, and the attitude from the players and everybody at the club was amazing during last season.
Phenomenal, yeah.
And maybe unless you're inside the club and inside the dressing room, you can only kind of speculate and kind of guess. And it did look like maybe a couple of feet maybe went up a little bit at that time, but I don't think anyone ever kind of was defeatist at the start. I don't think that came in until sort of May, but I think once we'd stayed at once, I think we were probably a bit blasé that we could do it again.
I think there's quite a bit of that involved in that, and also obviously we've gone over it a million times on here about the transfer window. It was clearly very, very poor in the summer. We had our doubts even before the ball was kicked. It hadn't been the best.
Quietly, we tried to obviously be.
Yeah, we tried to be as positive as possible,
build it up, but yeah, we were a little bit.
But it was poor. That was borne out in early season form. Obviously, quite a few of the lads that were brought in have hardly played, so that tells its own story. And we were sort of left with a squad that had ridiculously stayed up. I mean, how they stayed up was phenomenal. But that can only take you so far. That momentum that they've carried through from the promotion season into last season can only take you so far. They really needed some quality additions, and you could argue the only one that we signed that was out and out quality was already existing from the survival season in Congolo.
I think financially, there's always for us. There's only so much you can do at a financial level, isn't there? Especially when it comes to paying wages. It's like Newcastle fans again at it as we got relegated. These lot have spent fortunes, blah 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 blah. But
clueless.
There's no point buying players that you can't afford to pay every week. You know, they had £100 million, £112 million wage bill last time they did their.
And ours were £4.50.
And we'll talk about finances later on, but a club like Huddersfield can't afford to sell its own future possibly down the river. And we've tried to be clever. We've tried to do it, and it's not worked.
No,
you know we'll talk about repercussions a bit later.
I think the club know they've got stuff wrong, but I think what you've got to look at is further than that, and the investment that's gone into the future with the new training facility, etc. That's cracking. To be fair, to go on to put that money into it because it's badly needed.
I think just to finalise that as well. I think when you've got the wage bill and the structure that we have, the error for margin is the margin for error even is so tiny that even if you get that slightly wrong, then you're done. You know what I mean? Whereas there's so many clubs could make so many mistakes and be fine. Whereas we're in a position whereby we can't afford to make one mistake. And
also going off the previous season, who could have foreseen that Mounier and De Poitre in nigh on a full season they'd have 2 goals between them? De Poitre's none. You know, it's that. Even if they'd scored 5 each, you know, another 8 goals in this season in the right games at the right times could have made so much difference. I'm not saying we deserve to stay. We don't.
No,
we've got 14 points, and you know we're clearly, as it stands, the worst team in this division. It's a fact. There's no hiding from that.
I'd love us to go down a bit second worst. Yeah, Fulham could join us today.
Yeah,
I would love us to get another. It sounds really pathetic, doesn't it? But I would like us to get 20 points.
Yeah,
2 wins, finish, avoid the bottom 3 worst teams ever. You can't. No, but maybe you kind of hope maybe that.
You hope, but you look at the games.
You hope now we're down.
You've got to go to Liverpool and Tottenham, so you.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of looking at.
And got to play Man U. You know, it's.
I'm looking at sort of Watford or Leicester at home, and then Southampton if they're safe. Maybe you could get something.
Yeah, we're clutching, aren't we?
But you know, 20 points, then you avoid the 2 records by Sunderland, Aston Villa, and then all of a sudden you're not as embarrassed as what maybe you would be with 14 points. But I'm afraid that's where it's come to. What it's also come to is the team that Jan Ziva is putting out there. So a lot of talk. We got wind that the 3 Danes weren't going to play.
Yeah.
Not so great Danes. And we've not done a podcast for 2 weeks, and the comments that they've made, I think Jonas Lössl had just come out, and we were a little bit unsure whether as to the foundations of whether it was true or not. It seems to be, well, it is. All 3 of them have made comments. I've got some of their comments here. Jonas Lössl was asked about being linked with Monaco and Marseille. He said, "It's a huge honour. These are huge clubs. Someone I could only dream of playing for is then of great interest. It is a pat on the back and evidence that I did well when I was in France and also in the last few seasons, and that I stand on a springboard to take a step I have always wanted."
The only caveat you can throw into that is that he's out of contract and he's not being offered another.
That's what's coming in there. So he's also said then whether it'll be with him or it'll be exciting to see. And Lössl has also said he's not heard from Huddersfield. There's been no dialogue since the summer with regards to a new contract, so he'll be likely leaving. A lot of people took umbrage to that.
I find that disappointing from club's point of view that we've not gone back in, because he makes that, whether it's true or not, he makes that sound like he was open to speaking to the club. We've obviously not taken up that option to talk to him about a new deal, which is disappointing because you're letting a very, very good goalkeeper go there for nothing.
So the first thing that seems obvious is that when he signed for Mainz, it was 2016, and he signed a 3-year contract with Mainz. We then took him on loan for 12 months with the option to buy. We've exercised that option.
Yeah.
What seems to have happened, or what I understand has happened, is that we've exercised that and we've taken over, or what we appear to have taken over his contract from Mainz. So that 3-year contract then becomes our contract. So therefore he's out of contract this summer. What I understand has then happened, what I've seen from multiple places, that we offered him something in the summer when he came back from the World Cup. Jonas Lössl didn't take too kindly to it for whatever reason. I do not know.
No, I didn't know that. Breaking news.
And that then perhaps contributed to him not starting the season. But that's what I'm hearing from little things. I can't sit there and tell you 100% that that's true, but this is what I'm hearing from different number of people who you tend to think they know what's going on. So it seems to me that Huddersfield have offered him something in the summer. I don't know what it was. I don't know what the terms were, whether they were unfavourable, etc., etc., etc. He said no, and Huddersfield have kind of just gone, well, that's it then. And it would be disappointing that they didn't come back with a counter offer at some stage if that's not the case, because I think he's been superb this season.
Yes,
and to his credit, he's come out with this comment, and a lot of people found it distasteful and disappointing, and I was slightly disappointed but understanding at the same time.
I think we touched on it in the last podcast, didn't we?
We did, and I kind of don't harbour any ill to Jonas Lössl because he's not down tools. He's been great all season. And he's even in with the fans at Crystal Palace. He doesn't have to do that. And
could have gone home, couldn't he? Let's be fair.
Exactly. So you can see the club obviously means something to him, which is what, as a fan, you want. Which,
moving on, cannot be said of the other two.
Exactly. And so I've only got shorter quotes from Philip Billing. And to be honest, out of the 3, Billing was the only one that kind of genuinely disappointed me a little bit, because he's under contract for another couple of years. Huddersfield are the club that picked him up when he was 16 from Ebbsberg. Have cultivated him, if you like, into a Premier League footballer, giving him a chance. And maybe it's just a little bit ill-advised. Maybe there's the famous
there's been this streak
translation
of Billy Big Bollocks about him since he brought through into the first team, to be honest.
There's always been that rumour, but you could never
there's been
quite
bits and
fully
pieces
see it,
that's,
Yeah. But he said, I've been in Huddersfield for a long time, so this summer it is time to try a new challenge. The Premier League is great, and I love the English football culture. I know there is interest from others in the UK and abroad. If I were Philip Billing, I stay quiet and just say, we'll see what happens. The club's going. He
could have easily, knowing that he wants to go, knowing he's got the contract behind him, knowing that if he speaks to the club and lets them know that he wants to go, that they'd sell him anyway. There's actually no need to come out and be so vocal about it, to be honest.
No.
Be quiet. Do your job till the end of the season.
And then off you go.
And then off you pop.
And you're more likely to get goodwill from from the club as well. Zanka, I didn't think there was a lot wrong with Zanka's comments. He was asked a question and he's tried to answer it honestly. I think because Zanka's not had a great season, I think he seems to have come under a bit of fire because of his performances. Rather, all I can say is I have a year left on my contract and we'll probably have a talk this summer what the future should offer for both of us. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Premier League. Playing 2 years in England has been a great experience, but I exclude nothing. There may be many exciting football countries in the world that may be of interest to me. I've got no problem with that comment, to be honest.
It is what it is, and let's be honest, he has been a shadow of the player that was here last season.
Yeah, the one that finished last season was a man mountain. This one's been more of a speed bump, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has.
But anyway, so we'll move on from those three. What's also interesting to see as well, Neil, is that it's not just those three. Steve Mounier went away with Benin, scored the winner for Benin.
Yeah.
Benin have qualified for the African Cup of Nations, so if Steve's here next year, he will miss the entirety of January, maybe some of February, which is something to bear in mind because he'll be at the African Cup of Nations. Stankovic didn't start. He was away with Slovenia. So none of them that were on international duty actually started. So maybe it might not have been completely personal for the comments, which is a possibility. But we started in a 4-3-3, Pritchard and Lerver up front with Grant, which was a little bit questionable. It kind of just shows our lack of attacking options.
We're clutching when we're playing a left back.
And he almost scored
as the left
twice.
side of the front three.
He almost scored twice. But to be honest, Neil, it just seemed to be... I don't really want to talk too much about Crystal Palace because it's just the story of the season. You start well, you miss chances.
It was just another tale of uffing and puffing, looking okay, making a couple of chances, failing to take any of them, and then just waiting for the inevitable, and it happened twice.
It's one of the most disappointing things about Huddersfield under Jan Ziva away from home is that mentally in the last half hour we just fall to bits. You know, we saw it at West Ham, we've seen it again at Crystal Palace.
Very weak.
Newcastle was horrendous.
But I don't hold that against Ziva.
I don't. It's probably more the system that is trying to be braver and we're just getting picked
we
off.
haven't got the players for it.
And
we certainly haven't got the confidence for it either. You can tell they're absolutely shot.
I've seen all the incidents. There's a few people mentioning that Zaha dived on the penalty, but it's Stonewall.
A pen. It's never seen a dive. It's a pen.
No, it's
we've slated him enough.
We've slated Wilfred Zaha, but Neil, you're 6'5" or something, and that takes you down. I think
it's a pen in it.
Like a water buffalo.
Cheers. There's no doubt about it. It's a penalty. The end.
It looked like I've been really positive about Bakuna.
It's a clumsy tackle.
It's naive from him. He's got to do a bit better than that as the game's going on. But he's young. He'll learn, hopefully.
Well, it's been done by a player who was supposedly worth 60, 70 million quid. So,
and let's be honest. One of the things we talk about money. Wilfred Zaha is an exceptional player, Crystal Palace, and he's one of those players that you need to keep your head above water, to just keep to score, create, etc. We can't afford that. He's supposed to be on 130 grand a week,
and he literally keeps Palace's head above water on his own.
And that 130 grand a week is probably 3 of our top players.
Yeah.
It's just not doable for us.
No, not yet. If we'd have managed to stay in and stay up here a bit longer, that could have been the story. But
not in our current guys.
Not now.
And it's another reason people are kind of like trying to point fingers at some stage, and it's just like it just is what it is. You know what I mean? Eventually, quality tells, and it's essentially what's happened.
Leeds are getting it straight to Moy again, who shoots. What a goal, Aaron Moy! An absolute thunderbolt delivered all the way from Australia.
And looking at some of the comments after the game, because people have gone for us. TalkSport have had a field day. I've ignored everything to do with them.
I just don't listen to them boppers anymore.
Some of the comments from players are actually quite interesting because you kind of look at them and you kind of look at their reaction, and sometimes you can gain a little bit of insight and body language in terms of, let's see what they say, because if they're not that disappointed and the body language is a bit carefree, maybe they're on the bike, etc. Maybe they're not going to be here next year. But to be fair, everybody was disappointed on that field. Nobody sort of walked off, not caring, which is a positive. And two of the questions that we've got from Minardi Forever and the Janino are our thoughts on Aaron Moy and the wording that he's used in his interview. I Aaron Moy is obviously a massive favourite of mine and of yours, Neil.
Best player I've seen in a town shirt, 39 years.
Same for me in less. I'm not even 39 years old, so... But less for me.
Okay.
But Moy said, this is I've got from the Huddersfield Examiner, which is okay to read again after Blake the Snake's gone. Looking to next season, Moy added, the club will have made a lot of money from being in the Premier League for 2 years, so it's up to them to set it up right so we can be competitive again in the Championship. Firstly, there's the language that is used. We can be competitive in the Championship. I'm clutching here, but that feels like Moy's just kind of looking at it at the minute from the perspective that he's going to be here until something happens. So maybe there's nothing lined up yet, but you would expect he's already been linked with Newcastle, so you would suspect there'll be sharks circling. Minardi Forever says, are you interpreting Moy's words yesterday as a spend and show some ambitions and I'll stay? I'll be honest, I don't think he would ever do that in an interview. I don't think he's ever that way out, Aaron Moy. I think he's just
Aaron Moy,
very shy and very
Aaron Moy
matter of fact.
Hates interviews. Aaron Moy will say the least amount of words possible in any interview situation to get out of there. He does his talking on football pitch. He's a quality player. If people like Newcastle are interested, if they're not interested, I'd be more surprised.
Although if you look
they've got to come up with a lot of money.
Newcastle fans have been at it again. Honestly, they're the most. I'm not going to get too offensive.
I won't even bother talking about them, to be honest.
But
they're not worth the...
They were linked, and apparently Aaron Moy is not in the same class as Isaac Hayden, Mohamed Diame, Jack, and they likened him to Jack Colback. So there's your whoppers of the week coming up.
Not a clue. I think I replied to that thread actually on Twitter at some point.
Incredibly stupid, some of them.
Yeah.
Incredibly stupid.
They don't... If they think that he's no better than Jack Colback, they do not deserve Aaron Moy up there.
I don't think they deserve anything.
Because Aaron Moy is...
Don't deserve eyes, mate.
Every day, all day long, every day of the week, Aaron Moy is a Premier League footballer. Outstanding footballer. Simple,
end.
Yeah.
So the Janini also said, of all of the players leaving, who do you think you'll struggle to find a club for? But God knows. You never know who. I think we'll get a clearer...
Lossell, Zanka, Billing will walk into clubs because of international reputation, etc. The rest of them,
it's sort of like you think Colin Quaner, don't you think? Will someone, because he's not exactly lit up Ipswich, who are bottom of the league, and you think maybe do we want Colin? But we don't.
It doesn't strike me as a Sievert type.
No, but we don't know who he wants because Quaner went before Sievert came in, so you might want to look at him. Yeah. Colin's a great character to have around. When you need people who are going to put it in that last half hour mentally tough. Colin is actually quite mentally tough.
A nuisance.
So is his first.
I'm just not sure if Quaner were. He fit how it were going under Wagner in the promotion season. He just sort of fit in as a character, and
he added to the momentum with his cooking.
Chef Cop.
Chef Cop.
And there was somebody the other day on Twitter that put about, we should go all in and try and get Effler back. No. He's been injury prone since day left. He was injury prone for the full season that he had the chance to play in Premier League. He was injured nearly all of that. He's gone to Forest. Town have let him go on a cut price so he could get a move with a decent wage.
I understand why
he's hardly kicked a ball there. But
I understand why people say that, but at a certain line, you've got to draw a line. And
you've got to look forward.
Heroes.
Effler needs to be revered for the player he was and the person he was.
You don't want him to come back, be injured, and just be a complete waste of space.
No, he needs to be remembered as the absolute hero that he was in the promotion season.
Yeah, I would leave it there.
Be left at that.
And the same goes with likes of Jordan Rhodes, who people have been talking about, Alex Smithies, etc.
Yeah.
Alex Smithies is probably a bit different because he's coming into his prime as a goalkeeper, and if Lersel's leaving, he's not a bad shout.
No.
But with like Joel Lynch was mentioned, it's like no.
I don't. Why can't people see further than who we've had before? It drives me mad.
But so Jonathan Hogg as well. Hogg's interview was good. He said he was devastated. A couple of things I took from that was he said we need to make sure we put things right to bounce back. So he was very tough talking. I love Jonathan Hogg. He's a proper captain and leader, isn't he? One of those. We need to make sure we recruit some top players that are used to the Championship. Need to come back and be ready for a fight. I was surprised a little bit by that, because the Wagner players he brought in, hardly any of them have played in the Championship.
No.
Wagner didn't really know much about
Nope.
the Championship, so I'm not sure that's as important as his other point, whereby they need to be ready for a fight, because Championship, 46 games, maybe 49 if you
It's
get
a
the
slog.
playoffs. It's tough. Look at Stoke now. West Brom on paper probably the best side in that Championship, along with Aston Villa.
West Brom and
they
Villa
just can't
should be the top
get
two in
together.
that league without any shadow of a doubt.
Yet they can't get it together. It's a
No.
tough.
Although Villa
league.
have just got going now, haven't they?
They have, yeah. So I kind of hope you can't help doing this, but you kind of look at the Championship and you kind of go, do you know what we could do with them going up and then
Yeah,
them staying
our
down?
way, yeah.
I do that all the time. I look at them
Yeah.
and kind of go, Aston Villa, big spenders. Yeah, I could do with them going up. Norwich, all right, they're already gone, and then Leeds and Sheffield United, and you kind of like,
You probably want
Would they
Sheffield
be up
United
there
to
next
stay down,
year?
to be honest.
yeah, and you kind of think Sheffield United, would Leeds be up there next year if Bielsa walked out? And you kind of think,
Probably not, no.
So you kind of hope, to me, ideally you'd want West Brom and Villa to go, but it's
Yeah.
looking like they both can't. But there we go. Terence Congolo was on Radio Leeds. He didn't really say anything. He was very, very defiant and in what he said, and I quite liked his attitude. But there was nothing there really to read about. And then Schindler was absolutely crestfallen. You could see he was very, very much affected. The strangest comments, though, Neil, that came out were how Jan Zievert's comments were taken. He just kind of... Sometimes you can see in his press conferences, sometimes his English is a little bit... He has to check, with the meaning of things. And one thing he said was, I need to sit down and discuss things with the ownership, with the chairman, the board going forward. I took that. When I heard that, I was like, yeah, fair enough. He probably wants to know who he can bring in, what he can bring in, and what leeway he's got, etc., etc. But the mainstream media, and Matt Hughes was one who picked up on it. Apparently Matt Hughes is a Town fan, somebody said, but I'm not sure about that. He wrote an article. I think Paul Doyle wrote one as well for The Guardian, which was really good. Paul Doyle's a Town fan who writes for The Guardian. Really, really good. His stuff is always well worth reading. But Matt Hughes, I'm going to just read some points from what Matt Hughes said. And he said Jan Zievert's future as manager of Huddersfield Town is in doubt after their relegation from the Premier League due to the collapse of his relationship with the club's senior players. The German who replaced David Wagner is understood to have alienated many in the dressing room with a hardline approach since his appointment that has resulted in 8 defeats and just 1 win. Sievert was given a contract until June 2021, just 10 weeks ago, but is now unclear whether he will stay at Huddersfield for next season's Sky Bet Championship campaign. Among a number of complaints from the dressing room, it is claimed that Sievert has dropped key players without any explanation and reacted aggressively to defeats. We've seen that, haven't we, in some of his post-match interviews? He looks like he's ready to batter someone. Mark Hudson, the under-23 coach, who is now first-team coach, who took charge of one match as caretaker, would be a popular internal appointment. So that came out, which was a bit strange. It seemed a bit of a strange takeaway, but when it comes from someone like Matt Hughes, who's quite well respected, he's no Henry Winter, but he's quite well respected and high up, in what he does. When it came out, it was really, really strange. So what was really good was that the day after, we've seen a statement from Dean Hoyle, which is the timing of that was absolutely spot on.
Perfect.
So the timing of that was spot on, and obviously I don't want to sit here and just read internet quotes to people. Gamer James has said, do you believe the reports about Sievert potentially leaving or that he's lost the dressing room? Personally, I don't. And so what if he's annoyed some of the players who won't even be here next season? So Dean Hoyle really answered that in his press release. Some of the takeaways, so I'm not going to read it all, but some of the things I took away which were really good. So season card sale retentions are over 90%, which is really great.
Yeah.
I wanted to get a season card for my little boy. It was his first birthday last week. So I wanted to get him his first season card. So he was a Terrier member. So I was trying to ring up. I think it took about 45 minutes to get through because it was so busy. Eventually got there. He's going to be sat with us, which is amazing. But
There's actually a queue at ticket office as well.
there was a queue, yeah. So there was actually people queuing outside. It's something like 15, 20 people deep. It looked what it looked like on the pictures, which is really, really sort of amazing and shows the progress that the club has made. And Dean Hoyle, Sean Jarvis, even David Wagner, people like that, can be really pleased with the progress that we've made as a football club in retaining supporters, and I think a lot of that's down to the the pricing structure and
100%
and the football on offer.
Yeah.
So well done to the club. So Dean's also said the club, myself included, is always learning, and we must accept that we have got things wrong this season. The truth is, you don't end up where we are in the table unless that is the case. There have been some unexpected circumstances, but that haven't helped as the year unfolded. But we must take full responsibility for what has happened, and the buck ultimately stops with me. So firstly, I want to say that that's nonsense, because Dean's illness could not be foreseen, it could not be helped. So I'm not going to sit here. I'm not. Firstly, I feel bad. I've just said it's nonsense, but I do not hold him responsible in any way whatsoever. The poor guy was ill for months, and the most important thing for me is that he's fit and healthy moving forward. And I'm not going to have people blame Dean Hoyle for this situation, Neil, and I know you won't either.
No.
It's just the kind of guy he is. He's just kind of. Everyone knows it's not his fault, but he's ready. He's there to take it on the chin, and it kind of shows what kind of chairman we've
That's
got.
why he's done well
And those people,
in everything that he's done.
and those people who have kind of invited the speculation that there could be a takeover need to be careful of what they wish for, and just kind of just remember what you've got as well. And I don't mean that to sort of brown nose Dean Hoyle or anything, but it's true. When we go through the finances in a bit, you will see why. But fantastic. So he's also said, despite the season we've had, I must stress that the club is in its best position in modern memory. We are strong in every area, and we've made sure that our first foray into the Premier League will have lasting benefits for Huddersfield Town, such as the legacy that our improved training ground will give for years to come. Sustainability is so important for every club. Our stability was one of the main reasons we reached the Premier League, and that must be the focus again as we return to the Sky Bet Championship next season. Naturally, players will depart and arrive during what promises to be a very busy summer, but we will not gamble with the club's future by spending recklessly. So one thing I've said is that I want, and I'm probably going to backtrack on it a little bit now, is that I've said when we go down, I want us to put the big boy pants on a little bit and then wallop some money down on a striker. And now I'm kind of like looking at the figures, the finance, and going, this may not be possible, and I completely understand why. But essentially what he's saying there is we're not going to go down and spend all that parachute money on one player. Which I think is something you'd agree with, Neil.
It might be lunacy to go on. Don't get me wrong. I want to see us go down, and I don't want to hear the old, going back to Chris Powell days, we can't compete approach with the likes of, because now we are the likes of.
For 3 years at least, yeah.
Yeah, so we've gone the other side of that wall now, where we are one of those that is the likes of. And no, I don't expect us to go and blow ridiculous amounts of money, but I would expect to see money that's brought in from selling Zanka, billing, if Moy goes, whoever else, reinvesting, and then you're not having to go and blow parachute money. That's there to support the club and look after the club's future.
Yeah, there's a question later on from Terrier Blog, which is if we make 40 million, what would you reinvest it on? And I would not be upset if we didn't reinvest all of what we earned and it was kept dry for other periods. I think there's a sensible approach. There's a few worries that I've got in terms of recruitment, in that this director of football needs to be sorted. We'll come to that in a little bit. We have a recruitment department. Things are ongoing, but we need to make sure that recruitment department is led. I know Josh Morris is the manager, isn't he?
Marsh.
Josh Marsh. I always call him Josh Morris. I think it's a rugby league player getting confused.
They plays for Scunthorpe, yeah.
So Josh Marsh, I've even written it down there, Josh Marsh. I've even written that down. But Josh Marsh is the manager. He will lead that up. Things are still ongoing. Things don't stop because there's no director of football. So that's a positive. But a director of football will need to knit it together. I want somebody who knows different markets, who knows different scouts, who knows different people. It's okay having a department who can go out and watch people, watch videos, make assumptions on who would be good, etc., etc. I want a director of football who can go and he can open up different doors in Europe. He can open up Scandinavia. He can open up, like Timo Pukki's come in for Norwich, for example. He's been a great signing.
Yeah.
I want somebody who can open different doors, to different scouts in different areas. And I think that's going to be really key moving forward.
Massively.
So hopefully if it takes a bit longer to get the right man, it takes a bit longer, but hopefully we get that sorted as soon as possible. So going back to Twitter, Ben Nichols says, your thoughts on Sievert's willingness to make ballsy decisions, Neil, such as dropping influential players from games, and his passion in post-match comments?
I'll be honest, at the start, when he were doing it, the odd one, or having, not so much dropping people, but having a bit of a direct rant after games, it sort of concerned me a little bit.
Yeah, we were both concerned, weren't we? Because man management is so key.
It's massive. It's a massive part of the modern game because, like it or not, footballers rule the roost. They are, and they are all divas now.
They all need to be loved.
Yeah, they're all very precious and want to cuddle. And so I was a bit concerned at first, but then when you hear the stories coming out about the players who were saying, "I see my future elsewhere," this, that, and the other, I then look and I think, bloody good for you, Jan. You were getting told, son.
Yeah,
and if it's your stance, I mean, end of the day, we're down. We were down before Saturday. We've been down since before Jan Sievert arrived. So results, as much as we'd like to get a few more points, don't matter, really, in the scheme of things. So if he sees the way forward for the rest of this season as blooding your Aaron Rose and your D'Amico Dainies and Matt Daly's and what have you, good. Let's see them. Let's see more of them. And the ones who are making it very clear that they've not got anything to offer this club anymore, off you pop. And I won't even have them anywhere near the club. I won't have them training with first team. I won't have them training with kids. I'd basically almost gardening leave job. Off you pop, get out. We don't need you.
I think it depends on how the player is around the club, doesn't it? So, for example, I'm not going to name specific. We'll tell you what, we'll use Jonas Lössl. So, Jonas Lössl, from what we can see, looks to have a very positive impact on anybody. You kind of think he's earned the right to stay out the season with us and do what he wants to do. There are probably other players that, screw it, we'll name him, Jason Punchin, who's fallen out with people, doesn't seem to be a great influence. I'd just send him back.
Yeah.
I'd just say, look, off
don't
you
need
go.
you
Don't
here,
come back.
Yeah.
I don't come back. If I need someone, I'm going to pick Kean Harrop from the under-17s.
Yeah.
Unless Jason Punchin, obviously, it's different if Jason Punchin's playing for a contract here and he's giving everything, but that doesn't look to be the case, does it?
Really.
It looks like he's kind of playing for time. So that hopefully answers that. Joe Graham says Hoyle's words about relegation, etc., which we've just kind of covered. Aaron Tyndall says, who should be held accountable for this season? Dean Hoyle seems to have taken the responsibility. Ultimately, managerial sackings and relegations are caused by bad recruitment. And then Dave B's followed that up with, has to be recruitment. Every season under David Wagner, we had our squad sorted by July. Last season, we were bringing players in right up until the end of August. I think it was August 9th we had to get everybody in by, wasn't it? The first game, the evening of the first game.
It's impossible to pinpoint blame because simple facts are nobody knows, we're all guessing. So I think you've got to say, as a football club as a whole, there's quite a few people who will have a little bit of blame in the failure of last summer and people coming so late, etc., and not getting the targets they particularly wanted.
All I really want to say on the recruitment is your recruitment's only as good as your budget available. So if the budget's not there to sign quality players, and the budget's not there to sign quality players, we've gone for young gambles. Okay, maybe some of them will come good later on. We've seen flashes. Me and you thought Diakabi was Malvin Kamara reanimated, didn't we?
Yeah.
We sat there and we were just like, he's just like Malvin Kamara. This guy, he's got his feet on the wrong way around.
It'd be good if there wasn't a ball involved, I said.
Yeah, but he started to prove us wrong, which is great. I'm happy to sit here and say, do you know what? Hands up. He's done really well in games against Arsenal, etc., etc. Great.
If he turns out to be one of our main men next year,
we'll be delighted.
Absolutely delighted, because that means we haven't blown 7, 8, 9 million or whatever it cost.
Exactly.
But we can't afford to blow that kind of money.
No, and he could come good next year, which I'm quite.
I hope he does. I don't want anybody to fail, because that means if they fail, as a club, we fail.
Absolutely.
So
I've seen flashes where if you push him right up and on that back line, and we've seen in the Championship, Premier League is full of pace.
Yeah.
What the Championship teams lack when they go up sometimes is that speed to compete.
It could be exciting with him and Grant and one other who's very quick to give you a really rapid three.
Providing that teams don't sit really deep against us and we can draw them in. Diakabi could be a revelation next season, and let's hope he is. He could also be Malvin Kamara.
He could, yeah.
But there's potential there and hopefully, it stands, and hopefully we can bounce. Ideally we want to bounce back. We want another.
The biggest issue is, and we've said it before, we've said it more than once, is that these players were signed in the wrong summer. These players were project players, and we weren't in a position after the promotion and staying up to sign project players, and we signed a good few of them.
Yeah, as fans, it's very easy to sit here and say we should sign so and so. I sat last summer. I don't know if I did it on the podcast, but I think last summer I said I'd love us to go sign Mark Albrighton. I just thought experienced winger creates so much. He's like a budget James Milner essentially. Yeah. But the thing is, what you've got to sort of consider then is like, how much is he going to cost? If he costs 12 million, for example, he might cost more. But if he costs 12 million, it's good value wise. It's quite good because he's going to create, etc. But it's not about that. It's about having to pay for him every week in terms of his wages, his loyalty bonus, and his signing on fee.
Bear in mind,
his
he's also a
appearance,
Premier League
his goals, etc., etc., etc. And if he breaks a budget and pushes, I think something along the lines of the highest paid players are around 50-ish grand a week, aren't they?
Yeah.
If he's up at 90 grand, he's going to upset. That's going to upset so much.
Yeah.
And the club can't afford that essentially. But it would have been nice. So
you could name 10 players like that who, but I just think we missed a trick. We didn't go and sign a couple of experienced, been there, seen it, done it.
Yeah,
I think that's what we
wanted,
really needed.
That's what we didn't want to fall into the trap of being those dogs of war.
No.
That West Brom have been playing long ball. I watch some of the football that Burnley play. And
it's awful.
We get lumped in with this, which is completely wrong.
It's awful.
But some of the football Burnley play and Cardiff, Fulham's all right actually, but
we've actually had more shots on target and created more chances than Burnley.
Yeah, I've got.
They've just got strikers who put ball in net.
We'll come to that sort of article as well in a bit, but we actually play okay football. It's just the end. That's the problem.
But like I said earlier on, though, you can't. It's hard to see at the start of season a situation where you're into April and Mounier scored twice and Depatra's not scored. I mean, we've got Carl and Grant who's coming, played how many games, and he's already outscored Mounier.
Yeah.
Which that just sums it up. It's ridiculous. Zanka's a joint top scorer with 3.
Yeah, him and Grant.
I mean, what did Mounier get last season? All comps, 8, 9.
He got 7 Premier League. I think it was 9 overall.
So if he gets 7 Prem, another 5 added on what he's got. Depatra got what, half a dozen?
Got 5. Yeah.
It's like I said earlier on. You add those in, another 10 goals on top. That's massive. 10 goals is actually season changing.
And David Wagner's probably still here.
Yeah, and we're probably still in bottom 3, but in a bottom 3, going into the last 6 games, scrapping like we were last season. So there's little bits and pieces. Overall, fact, we've not been good enough, but it's not as clear cut as not being good enough.
No. And what we'll do is that there was an article in the Times by Tom Clark, not our ex-centre back Tom Clark, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. There's some really good stats in there. If you haven't read it, it's almost worth subscribing to the Times for £1 for.
Moves in, Jepson's there, Billy's in, a goal, Chris Billy, Huddersfield Town. The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life.
But what we'll do first is we'll talk. Well, there's been another brilliant article released about Huddersfield Town. It's been the week for articles about Huddersfield. Some of them tragic, from your football labs, etc. I don't know if that's a website, but there's a few have done pretty poor ones. But one really good one is the Swiss Ramble, which is always worth a follow, and it's about football finance and price of football. Kieran Maguire is also really good to follow if football finance is your thing. If it's not your thing, then the next 10-20 minutes are probably not for you. But I don't know about you, Neil. My background is not financial services.
Nope.
So instead of me and you sitting here going, "Oh, doesn't the wage bill look all right?" What I've decided to do is get in touch with a couple of people, and what we'll do now is we'll ring a buddy of mine. When financial data appears and it looks like rocket science, what do you do, Neil? You ring a rocket scientist.
Ring a rocket scientist.
So what I'll do is I'll hook in my mate Dan Fowler, who is a rocket scientist, believe it or not, who now works in the music industry, but has a strong link to finance. So we'll just ring him in. Right, Dan. So welcome to the podcast. So Dan, you've got background in all sorts of areas, haven't you? You've been to London, Dubai. You've got bits and bats all over the place, and you know little bits about finance, which makes you far more qualified than me and Neil here. So welcome to Andy Takes That Chance.
Cheers.
So the big build-up. So this week we've seen the Swiss Ramble have done a piece on Huddersfield Town's profit and loss account. What's probably quite key to remember is that this is for last season, and things like the wage bill, the spend, etc., is not applicable to this season that we're currently going through. So these are up to is it the last financial year, or has football slightly changed, Dan, so they do it to June?
I believe it's for the last season.
Okay. So what's your sort of take home from the Swiss Ramble and the finance itself? So we can see there's a huge difference, can't we, from Championship to the Premier League? The broadcasting revenue is astronomical compared to what we got in the Championship, so it's £102 million more. But is there anything that you spot in there which shows that there's essential growth at the football club?
Yeah, I mean that's a really interesting question. I think the sort of first feeling is that it's exactly what we thought it would be going up to the Premier League. It's a completely different ball game. The amount of money that we've made in the last year, so not the last year, as you said, it's the previous season. First season in the Premier League was more than the previous 5 seasons combined in the Championship. It's completely different. I think the main point you can take from it is that when we went up, what we all wanted us to do was to kind of compete, but not put our future in jeopardy, and that's exactly what we've done. I mean, our wage bill was 15 million lower than the second lowest club.
Yeah, so I think it was 54, but I think the bonuses, of survival take that up to 62.6. So this season, so if we take it that this season the wage bill is the same, which it won't be because there'll be, there's extra players, Congolos coming, etc., etc. It will have increased, but those bonuses are obviously not going to be applicable this year, sadly.
Yeah, and I think the positive thing you can see from those bonuses, and obviously the previous season, I think they paid out 12 million in promotion bonuses as well in wages. Is that I think as fans we've always wanted the club to reward players for doing well, and have things in place when things don't go so well. And we don't know exactly what the terms of everyone's contracts are at the club, but you'd hope that there will be clauses in there that when we do get relegated, or we are relegated now, but for next season, that everybody will have a sort of 20, 30, 40%, or whatever it is, reduction.
Our understanding is that it's quite a severe reduction, so yeah, hopefully that is the case. So a couple of take-home points, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think as I say, I think we spent within our means, which is a ridiculous statement with Premier League, with the finances in Premier League. And I think as I say, it paints a very good picture financially for the season before this one. And you would hope that it'd be even better for this year. I think obviously we spent about 60 million on signings in the summer, just to basically try and patch together some form of Premier League side. And we had to spend something like 20 million on stadium upgrades. So I think that was sort of like one-time spend. So you would hope the finances would be stronger. Obviously, signings, you don't pay it all up front nowadays, and so we'll be paying out for those signings over the next couple of years. But it's generally a really positive picture, and I think it's something that we can all feel quite positive about as we go into next season.
Okay, so some of that from my reading. So I've also had a little help from a Huddersfield Town fan called Simon Taff as well, who's helped put together some points on this as well. So thanks to Simon as well. So in terms of broadcast revenue, what we've seen that massive jump from 7.5 million to 109.9, and even the 7.5 million slightly inflated because we were on Sky far more times than what we were previously due to the promotion run.
Yeah.
So this coming season, we should really expect a similar 110 million pound for this season, as it's part of the same football deal running through to the end of this season.
Yeah.
So the parachute payments of what we understand when we arrive there next season. So the parachute payments in the first year will be 55% of the broadcasting rights, which are likely to be about 38 mil.
Yeah, I mean, I think on Swiss Ramblers it's 42 million. But yeah, it's in that kind of ballpark. And the really interesting point in that as well is, if we're talking about kind of what kind of financial situation we're going to be in next year, 42 million plus in our promotion season we made about 17 million, puts us at about 59-60 million pounds revenue we'll get next year.
So what's quite interesting, sorry, Dan, is that the football deal runs out, doesn't it? So it's a 5.14 billion pound deal that expires at the end of this year. In 3, and what we have then is a 4.55 billion deal, but the Amazon package hasn't yet been announced as to what that is. So I think the estimated parachute amounts are based on the deal next season. So my understanding is that the parachute payments will be based upon what the next deal will be.
Right. Okay. I didn't realize that. Actually, I assumed you'd be frozen from sort of this.
Yeah, I think we're kind of guessing, because it's never that cut and dried, is it? So if so we've obviously not got the Amazon package in, so that 4.55 billion should really equate to. So the way it's split, or seems to be split, is 55% in the first year, 45% the second year, and then in the third year, it's 20%. So currently that would be 42 million on the current TV deal. Based on the next one, it's possibly 38, and then 31, and then 14 million is the third year. So what essentially my take from that is that for Huddersfield Town, we've got 2 years really to get our stuff together and mount a decent challenge to get back up. Otherwise, once that runs out, we're back to 2016-17, whereby we're creating 7.5 million TV money, and this 30-40 million pound a year is no longer there.
That's exactly right. I think as I was saying, that if you put the parachute money plus the sort of revenue we get in the championship together, that puts us at about 60 million. Last season that would be fourth highest in the championship. So we're gonna have sort of like top 6 revenue for next season, and then we'll have probably about the same the season after as well. And so you're right, you're absolutely right. We've basically got a project now for the next 2 seasons to see if we can get back up again or not. And then we've got a third season to kind of, if we need to, consolidate and kind of hopefully settle the mid championship if that's what has to happen.
Yeah, and what's quite interesting as well, just dipping off the subject as well, Neil, just to bring you back in, is at the end of next season is when most of the contracts expired. So Aaron Moy's contract goes, and a number of others. So I think there's sort of 10, 12 out of contract then, and that's when you kind of look and you think maybe that's when a major overhaul could take place if we can't get that done this summer.
I think that'll happen this summer, to be honest. Yeah. I don't think they'll be waiting until those contracts are coming to an end. I think Town are a bit more savvy. I think we're more likely to try and sell Aaron Moy for 20 million-ish now, rather than let it run down to getting a couple of million in the January before he's out of contracts, etc. It's just not the Town way, and it's looking at the figures. We've gone up there, we've earned this money. It'd almost be foolish to lose an asset like that for, so a very, very little sum when he can get circa 20 million for him now.
I think that's exactly right. And I think, what we were just saying then is that if we've got a 2-year project ahead of us, if there's players who are going to be running out of contract halfway through that doesn't really work on the same thing. I think, Jan Siewert needs to be going into next season having assurance that, he's going to have backing for a couple of years and build the right team to sort of execute on that.
What's quite interesting, another way to maybe look at that is Aaron Moy's got a 2-year contract. The likelihood of him staying regardless is probably slim, because he deserves to be playing Premier League football. But if he was to stay, another way to look at it is we've got 2 years of Aaron Moy, and do you maybe trade off that transfer fee loss? You know, say for example he's worth 20 million in 2 years, he's worth nothing. Do you maybe trade off that 20 million? And obviously 20 million is pie in the sky. We don't know what he'll go for. Or do you then keep him in the hope that you get another 100 million in promotion? So that's obviously something that the club will maybe have a look at and have to weigh up. But obviously the player's happiness in and amongst it all is key.
It doesn't sound very Huddersfield Townish, that, to me.
Gambling.
It's just not. I can't see that being a scenario in any shape or form, unless Aaron Moy point blank says, "I want to stay," which is unlikely. He's a footballer at the end of the day. As much as we love him, he's a very sort of down to earth kind of bloke. He's a footballer. He's got a short career. He's arguably in his prime. This is arguably his best time to get his best possible move for his life, for his family. So I fully expect to see Aaron Moy leave this summer. And I think for 20-25 million quid, which I think is fair fee, and I think he's one of those players who we would just wish all the very best.
Yeah, I completely agree.
It's a reinvestment, because then you don't have to touch the parachute payment money. Then, you know, that can be there to support the club for the future, and then you're looking at reinvesting transfer fees. So that's money earned rather than looking at the business side of it, the parachute payments, which I'd sort of say that kind of money is more for the football club on the business side and making sure we've got a solid foundation going forward in the future. Whereas, obviously, the more money can reinvest, we could buy 3 very, very good Championship players for that kind of money that we could get it for him.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think Moy would walk into any mid-table Premier League side, and if that's what he wants to do, then I think I completely agree. He'd go with every single Town fan's blessing. There's another element as well, just on that as well, about not dipping into the parachute payments. I mean, we made £30 million profit last year, and we're probably going to, I would imagine we'll make at least that again. I mean, if you took the 20 million down that Hoyle had to loan us to get the stadium up to nick, then that's going to be like £50 million profit. Plus, obviously we didn't spend as much in terms of transfers, so like we could be going down with up to 80, 100 million. In terms of profit that we made while we were up here.
What's interesting for me, Dan, is that I'm going to spring this on you now without prepping you, and it's very unfair. But we're going to look at one thing that's kind of come to my mind is financial fair play, and that's one thing which is quite key in the Championship. And would selling Moy for or that parachute payment of 38 million, 42 million, whichever it is, if we make enough money in the transfer window to keep our rotation going of players, that £40 million, could we keep that in the bank, so to speak, and then, or would financial fair play go from year to year? So, for example, if we leave that 3-year period, we've obviously still got that money sat there, but could we then use that money from 3 years ago in terms of financial fair play, or am I asking a bit too much there?
Yeah, no, I mean, as far as I'm aware, when it comes to financial fair play, it's kind of how much money the club's bringing in versus how much it's spending. So, like money in the bank, as far as I'm aware, doesn't count in that kind of equation. But what it will do is it'll plug the gap, because we all know that it's impossible to run a profitable Championship club. So that will give us, a really good sort of nest egg to be able to sit on. And sort of, keep the club going through that period.
Yeah, so we'll move on. So, did well there, Dan. Well done, mate. So, in terms of match day revenue, we've jumped up from 4 million to 4.8. It's not astronomical, but it's progress, which is really good. So, your match day revenue it tends to be, what's happening, and with people turning up. I think the key to that is there's an extra 4,000 people on the gate that are turning up, which have helped with that, which I and Simon both think should stay relatively quite high next season, Dan, with the attendance or the season ticket take up as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think one thing to remember in that as well is that was £100 ticket, £100 season ticket season as well.
I think there was 4,000 of them, wasn't there?
Yeah, so that's going to sort of deflate those numbers a bit. I think like we kind of the club, we all had a bit of an epiphany about 3 years ago and realized that actually it makes sense to have cheaper season tickets and more people in there to create an atmosphere. And I don't see us changing that anytime soon. I think that's been so instrumental in everything that's happened over the past couple of years. That the extra couple of million we might be able to pull through on that, it isn't worth it in the long term.
Okay, so commercial revenue is an interesting one as well, because people kind of look at commercial revenue and just think, probably incorrectly, that commercial is sort of maybe just people coming up and selling boxes, but it's not just that with Hood or us selling boxes even and then buying them. So that increased from 2.3 million to 7.4. Knowing what you do, Dan, some of these deals you would maybe, so what Simon said is maybe some of these deals will be long term. So despite relegation, we maybe hopefully could maintain that to a decent level.
Yeah, I think so. I think one thing I'm not totally sure on, does that include the shirt sponsor? Is that part of the commercial deal?
I would imagine that would be part of the shirt sponsor. So Ope Sports, Neil, was that a 2-year deal? Can you remember when they came in?
2, I think. Yeah, 2.
Yeah. So I think we can imagine that we won't be getting a Chinese gambling firm sponsoring us next year. I mean, maybe we will be, but
I think half
of
the championship is sponsored by 32 Red, aren't they? So I won't be surprised to see them sort of rock up on the shirts at some point. But yeah, so that 1.5 million deal could be gone. But we did sign with Umbro last year as a commercial partner, so that deal with Umbro you would hope would maybe stay the same as well. And moving from Umbro, we've got the retail revenue as well, which has increased from 1 million to 2.1, which is a good double. But that's, I think, partly down to a big influx of shirts. As we've entered the Premier League, we're selling shirts to Australia, aren't we? And it'd be interesting to get Sean Jarvis on at one point as well to sort of see how far these are going. Obviously, we know we've got Sivan John over in Malaysia who's flying the flag for us over there, and we've got people in Australia. Our mate Ian Kilroy's down there in Australia buying things, and
quite a lot of USA, isn't there?
Yeah, the USA Terriers are quite big on this podcast as well, which is great. We've got all sorts of numbers all over USA, which is brilliant. Hopefully, we'll probably see. The Umbro shirts. Cosy doesn't like Umbro. It's a shame he's not here to argue his point. But Cosy doesn't like Umbro. I like Umbro, but I would imagine that those will stay popular, and maybe we won't get the full 2.1, but I would hope next year that, obviously this year we'll probably be up there still, but when we're in the championship, I would imagine it would still be quite high.
Yeah, I mean, I think what will be interesting is to see how much kind of residual interest there is in us when we're not in the Premier League. Obviously, we've made a lot of new fans since we've gone up, and it'll be interesting to see if we can keep them or not. I think on commercial revenue, there's a really interesting point here around sort of local versus international. I think I met with Sean Jarvis a few years ago. It was when things weren't very good. I think we'd had quite a challenging year in the championship, and me and him had it was like a 6-hour meeting. I just randomly contacted him, and he said, "Yeah, come down to my office." And then 6 hours later, I'm like, "Oh, bloody hell, okay." That was a good chat. But his focus then was around how to build up a kind of local community of businesses supporting the club. I think he called it the 100 Club or something like that.
Huddersfield 100, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so that was his dream then, and he's kind of executed on that, which is really, really cool. But I think that there's quite a low ceiling in how much money you're going to be able to get extract from the local community, and so that's where he's kind of tried to focus more on international stuff. Like heading out to the east and stuff like that. I think probably to make success. Obviously, we don't know everything as fans outside of the club, but it doesn't seem like that's been particularly successful. Maybe it has, but I would imagine it's going to be even harder to see that next year. And so there's a real question here around how much we can push the commercial revenue of the club. Understand there's a bit of a payoff in terms of as you're extracting more and more money from your fans, you start to sort of push them a little bit more. And how much there's a payoff, how much you want to push that versus realize that we've now got a shed load of cash. Maybe we don't actually need to push that side of it as much.
So We'll move on to maybe the last point really that we've got here, which is probably a bit more interesting for. We'll actually do players' wages, but we'll probably. I think some people will find this. I found this interesting. Obviously, not everybody's as geeky as me, Neil, but it's the player amortization. I always feel like I'm saying that wrong. Amortization is quite an interesting one for me. So apparently that's increased to 17.1 million. For those that don't know what that is, and I had to look this up as well, player amortization is so if we sign so Terence Congolo we'll use as an example, he's coming for allegedly 18 million or 18 million pounds. We wouldn't pay that all up front. We would spread that out over the course of his contract, almost like buying a car on PCP or finance, if you like. So the amortization is the amount that we still owe on transfers, I believe, going across over the next couple of years. So instead of taking a full hit in one, we'll spread that out over the lifetime of the player's contract. So, for example, if we sign, we'll use Simon's example here of Congolo, and he said if we sign, if it's 4.5 million a year for Congolo, what's quite interesting is that the amortization rate then drops by 4.5 million to sort of say 13.5. And the question is then, and a different way to look at transfers. So we're looking at Aaron Moy as a potential sale. I presume we've probably paid off the majority of the Aaron Moy transfer now. I think he came in for sort of between 8 and 10. But Terence Congolo came in for 8 million. We'll have paid a 1-year instalment on that. And if that's 4 even amounts, we've probably got 13.5 million left. And you would wonder then, would the club then cut their losses, so to speak, on what they're paying? Because obviously in the Championship, 4.5 million a year is quite a heavy layout. So you would maybe think that maybe, and you start looking at players in a different light, and you start thinking if that amortization is going to go on for another 3 years of 4 million, 5 million quid, then maybe the club will cut the losses, and maybe we might not get as much money for some players as what some people expected, and maybe some people might be in for a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, I think this comes back to the point we're making earlier about financial fair play. That's the reason why you do this, is so you can spread things out over time. I would imagine that all of the kind of amortization we've done will be, the club had to expect us to go down this year, even at the beginning of the season. We hoped that we wouldn't, but reality, as you were saying earlier, Neil, like the Huddersfield Town way is a reality way, and everyone at the club would expect us to go down. And so you would assume that any signings we brought in would stagger against parachute payments coming in. So yes, I think that there's a question around whether we'd want to kind of speed that up and sell them on. But to be honest, we'd probably still be paying that amortization off because that's just the most economical way to do it. And so all we'd be doing is then taking in money on a similar sort of structure going forward as we would be paying it out.
So I found that sort of quite interesting how you pay over the length of the contract. And I think also as well, another thing which will go back onto players' wages as well, is the way I understand it now is that wages are obviously paid weekly as normal, but loyalty fee, I think players now get a loyalty bonus, and they also get a signing on fee. And the signing on fee is also staggered across the length of the contract as well. So that's also, when somebody's getting 50 grand a week, he's not just getting 50 grand a week, he's also getting his signing on fee and his bonus, as well as a number of other bits and bats, across the contract.
I think bonuses might be few fat between this season, if we're being brutal. I think there's 3 wins. Yeah. 3 wins and a ridiculously minus goal difference.
I think the loyalty bonus might be questionable about some of the Danish comments as well, isn't it? But there we go. But sorry, Dan, you were saying.
No, I was just about to make a joke about the fact that we're not exactly going to be paying that much goal bonuses, are we?
No, I think we're all right, aren't we, for a lot of it next year. So thanks to you and Simon for helping a couple of idiots out here when it comes to finance. I'm sat here with my Finance for Dummies book. Neil can't even be bothered reading it, so
I'm just sat nodding and filling in where I can.
I think if there's time for just one more point, I think there's a really interesting thing that kind of looking forward 2 years. So say we're about to go into a 2-year project. Let's call it that. And Hoyle seems to be set in for that. There's a question around whether that's his last go. I think he's had his health problems, and we've been through quite a bit over the past year. He seems to have kind of publicly stated his support for Siewert over the past couple of weeks, which kind of implies that he's gonna help him push for that. But I would, if we don't get up over the next couple of seasons, then I think that then raises a really interesting question for Hoyle. He's sunk 50 million into the club now. I think we're now in a position where he doesn't need to put much more in, hopefully, unless we get back up again. But then hopefully we should be good. So
I was going to say Canalside Holdings will probably be separate, I think, to the club as well. So you probably don't see the true reflection of maybe what he's put into the club as well, because it'll be under separate accounts.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah. But yeah, so I think there's an interesting point there whereby there could be an opportunity in a couple of years' time whereby Hoyle can say, right, I've done my bit. The club's in a secure financial position. We're now probably settled in for some years in the Championship. Maybe now is the time to sort of hand over the reins.
Potentially, we obviously hope that never comes, because
of course,
when you don't get somebody just happy to fit a £5 million loss a year, do you, in the Championship? You have to find somebody pretty special to want to do that, and the reasoning why they want to do that as well is also very important for me as well. So you've got a true fan who's happy to prop up a loss because he loves the club. There's not a lot of money in Huddersfield, so the likelihood of the next owner could be from abroad. It could be from over here where I live. It could be it could be from anywhere. And if somebody comes in such as that, I always question the motives of why they are here in the first place, and that's always going to be my question. If somebody new comes in, why are you here? What are you hoping to achieve? And what happens if we don't achieve it?
Completely agree. But then on the other side, Hoyle isn't going to be around forever.
Don't say that, Dan. No, thank you very much for your input, Dan. We'll have a catch up soon, buddy. And thank you to Simon as well for his input on that. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, Dan. Thank you. Cheers, mate.
And every single one of you should never forget, it doesn't count how big you are. It doesn't count how experienced you are. It doesn't count how nice you are. If you have passion, desire, you have no limits. No limits.
Right, Neil, we are back in the room, so thank you very much to Dan Fowler. You can see why I've got him on there. He's a very bright lad, really, really good guy, so hopefully we can get Dan on more as next season and this season progresses as well. So we'll move on, mate. So we will move off of finance because we are out of our depth.
Absolutely.
And we will go on to a couple of articles. So Paul Doyle wrote an article. I'm not going to linger on that because he also questioned I think he got the terminology of what Jan Siewert said wrong. But Paul's decent, if you want to read his stuff. The best one that's come out, and sadly it's behind a paywall, so maybe not enough people will get to see this, is not our ex-academy and centre-half Tom Clark, but the journalist Tom Clark. He wrote an article on us about, I think it was dissecting, I've now closed it, but I think it was about dissecting the tactics that he's done. And he wrote a really, really good article, and there's a few points that I've pulled out which I think are worth sort of mentioning. And we sit here as fans, we sit here and we think, do you know what, we've been unlucky today, and then you think, are we just biased or is it true? So it's always good to get or to see somebody who's neutral, who doesn't care whether we're good or not, throw that in. And he's done a lot of digging into why we are where we are, and what seems to have annoyed him, and it annoys us, is that people have just gone, Huddersfield, bottom of the league, 14 points, rubbish. And, during a little break, you've played a clip by Adrian Durham, who's an absolute top-grade whopper.
Yeah.
and he's just gone on the rampage about not trying and absolute garbage.
Utter guff.
Yeah, but Tom Clark's come up with something really good. So he's done his research essentially, unlike most of the people that go on TV and radio. So there's just a couple of points that I've pulled out. So he sort of said, of the teams to have played in the 2 seasons Huddersfield have been in the Premier League, they are 20 goals shy of the next team in the list. Everybody knows we can't score goals. Every idiot on TV, Danny Murphy, even an absolute idiot like Danny Murphy can see we do not score enough goals. That's that. You know what I mean? But he's looked a little bit deeper than gone. Huddersfield have gone down because they haven't scored enough goals. That's what Martin Keown said the other day. That's as deep as he went. And to be fair, he doesn't care.
Martin Keown is the missing link, though, isn't he? Let's be fair.
He doesn't care, does he? As long as it's not Arsenal, he's not bothered. But what he's also put is put, while goals haven't been their strength for a while, it is not for the want of trying. Whenever I've watched Huddersfield, they do create chances. They've created more than Burnley, which is what you said earlier, Neil. 508 chances to Burnley's 494 in the past 2 seasons.
Yep.
It has just been that key finish which has been missing, as suggested by their poor conversion rate, despite having more shots than both Burnley and Brighton. To compare those 3 teams when you think of goals, Brighton have Glenn Murray and Burnley have Chris Wood and Ashley Barnes. All 3 would likely start for Huddersfield ahead of Depoitre, Meunier or Kachunga.
There's no doubt about that. They would all play for us.
Yeah. But what is interesting is that despite scoring fewer goals and having a worse shot conversion rate, they have created more chances. 31 more chances, to be exact. And that's us from last season to this season. So despite scoring less this season, we've actually created more. And there have been 141 more passes and crosses into the opposition box and 83 more touches in the opposition box. And one of his points at the end is, could it be that in attempting to move away from that more pragmatic style which you see at the bottom end of the Premier League, have Huddersfield become undone? And he says, I remember watching several Huddersfield games last season where, having been impressed by their organised defensive work against big teams, they then struggled when they were presented with a side who they could if they wanted to attack, and he's used Swansea as a good example. For me, it's really worth reading that article because it gives us the right amount of respect, and it gives a true reflection of what's happened this season. He also talks about penalties and how Huddersfield should have had more penalties than what we've got, and etc. We've covered those, haven't we? And there's no point bagging referees because there's more to it than just a couple of lucky decisions. But for anybody who wants to look at it, it's a really interesting article. There's a lot of graphs in there to show what's gone on.
It's just a sensible piece. It's somebody who actually gets it, and somebody who's actually taken the time out to look outside the box and not just go for they don't score enough, the strikers are rubbish, the defence is rubbish, they lose every week, etc, etc. They've actually gone in there and delved and looked at it properly, as we would as fans and as we have as fans. And maybe we said quite a few times, pre-Wolves, which was sort of the end of us as a team this season, Wolves away, we said quite often up until then that this is actually a better team than the one we had last season. And we were, just a few bits of luck and maybe a player or two shy of being, competitive in the bottom half of this league.
He also mentioned, he touches on the mental strength in that when we've gone in front, we've lost more games this season than when we've gone in front. And he's also pointed out one of the main reasons we got, when we beat Wolves, we were starting to look really good. It was that midfield, that diamond midfield that we had. We had Hogg sat at the base, Pritchard at the tip, and then Moy and Billing either side, and all four of them were playing reasonably well at that point, especially Philip Billing.
Yeah.
It was when Aaron Moy got injured at Arsenal, which is where that shape, that system, and everything sort of unravelled at that point. And he mentions that as well. And
the most frustrating thing about that for me, and I've said it and I've banged the drum about this since pre-season, take the injury out of it. We didn't know he was going to get injured, but take that out of it. We knew that he wasn't going to be here in January. And my biggest bugbear throughout the summer was we needed to replace Aaron Moy. ready for January coming because he wasn't going to be here. And he's simply head and shoulders our best player.
He's not
by
as
a
good as Jack
long
Colback. What you want about?
or Isaac Hayden. But yeah, it's simply our best player. He's the one of real Premier League quality who we can boast as ours.
I never thought really we were a one-man team, but we're as close as
We're as
can
close
be,
as you
aren't
can be at this level. And I was always worried about that. And people say it's all right, we've got Danny Williams, it's all right, we've got Organ Billing. But
Danny Williams could have sat in for a couple of games in that, but he as well has just...
But we said at the time, injury prone, injury prone, Billing never does it sustained periods enough.
I'm not sure Hogg's injury prone. He's had a few out. I won't say it was.
He tends to be out with niggles quite often, and then you can't rely on those to give you what Aaron Moy can give you. So that was the biggest lack of cover signing in the summer for me.
I don't see how a club like us could ever carry an Aaron Moy Mark II, with sort of the wage and whatnot.
But we didn't have anybody.
But we didn't have.
That were it.
I think we probably thought we'd have Billing and Williams, but we've obviously gone in too light, haven't we?
Yeah, 100%.
But like we've said, like Adine Hoyle said, lessons have probably been learned, or what the lessons have been learned, and I'm sure they'll have a root and branch approach. And a few people have kind of just said, whose fault is it? And it's just collective, collectively, okay, some of the recruitment was wrong, but maybe the budget for the recruitment was wrong. We don't know that. But take that out. But we have had dreadful luck with injuries. We've had dreadful luck with referees ringing up on a Monday apologising for poor performances. We've lost the best manager we've had for almost 100 years. It's just not been our year. And somebody put on Twitter that, I think it was Jodie Calvert, said,
it was Jodie.
She said, there was a perfect storm in getting promoted, and it's almost like a perfect... She didn't say this, but I'm going to say it. She said a perfect storm the other way, but I call it a perfect shit storm going the other way.
Yeah.
And it's just not happened for us. But I'm not interested in blaming people. It's just collective across the board.
There's no point blaming individuals because it doesn't get you anywhere. Like at the end of the day, it's a football club. It's not a football individual.
It's the finest of fine margins can relegate a club like us, and you get one minor thing wrong. When
you haven't got the quality that others have got,
you have to be lucky.
You've got to be very lucky, and you've only got to look at. I mean, let me just give it.
And that's not just decisions with the referee. That's also lucky in your recruitment, in that you bring someone in who's not done it somewhere else, and you spit shine them, and all of a sudden they turn into a player 10 times what they were.
As we currently stand now, at nearly 9:30, Watford are demolishing Fulham 4-1. So Fulham will be joining us in Championship next season.
That's a shame.
And Fulham have spent over £110 million this summer.
That is Watford, who me and you also said.
We tipped Watford for relegation. So take no notice what we talk.
They are superb, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been brilliant. You can't fault it.
I've got no issue with them.
But Fulham have spent £110 million, and they are...
in 1 year
and I tell you what really gets me.
What's just before
is
you
that
finish
we've
that, Neil?
been ruined by... I can't stop, I'm on one. We've been ruined in every corner of the media, the press, etc., about how poor we are, how we're this, how we're that, how we're not this, how we're not that. Fulham have spent £110 million and more, and they're 3 points better off than us.
What I was going to say...
And they don't get a mention as being anywhere near as bad as us.
That's because they're based in London.
Yeah, but it's wrong, isn't it?
They're
It's
a
just
middle-class
wrong.
team from London.
It's wrong.
It is wrong. And
my little goal for the rest of this season, I just want to finish above Fulham.
Yeah, I'd love to finish
and I'd be
above
happy.
Fulham.
I'd take that now.
I'd be happy now. I wouldn't have been at the start of the season.
Oh, no, but
now,
no, now. Knowing what we know now, I want to finish above Fulham.
If we finish on 20 points above Fulham, I'm flicking V's up.
Yeah.
All over. I'm just like, we're not the worst side. Yeah, so what I was going to say as well is the Swiss Ramble have also done Fulham's accounts from when they got promoted from the Championship, and the amount they've spent to get promoted is similar to what we've spent in the Premier League.
Yeah.
It's astronomical. They've obviously got Shahid Khan, who's an American billionaire who's bankrolling it.
But it just shows you how well as a football. I know this season's been a disaster really, but it just shows you as a football club how well we have done to get there and stay there and manage to be in there for 2 years. And Fulham have avoided any kind of criticism whatsoever, and they're down tonight. So I'm glad Fulham are down. And I tell you what, they will really have to strip that squad because they spent silly money.
Yeah, so they'll have an overhaul like us.
Yeah.
And last time they got relegated, they spent a year or two down at the other end and almost went the other way. Another question is when
And they're on the
David
third
Wagner,
manager this season.
and when David Wagner left, people were saying Slavisa Jokanovic, and all of a sudden now you go, do you know what? He's had a lot of money to spend there, and he's only got them in the playoffs, and then they were below us when he went, and you kind of think maybe he's not that good.
Did well at Watford as well, though, without spending daft amounts.
No, they had the Pozzo family, and they were getting players in from all over Europe, which they were kind of. Is that the year they were cheating the system, or did they then close that off?
I think they got shut off, didn't
But
they?
they were using.
He's still got
other
two
clubs.
promotions out of there in the playoffs, and
He has, but
Something
for
about
me,
it.
he's got two. They don't compare to David Wagner's because he's had access to millions there, and if he comes to us, he's not going to get that access. So
No.
is he as good as what it is? So anyway, that was just a thought off the top of my head.
Lovely take and turn by Grant. He's right between two defenders. Grant jinks, shoots high. Wonderful goal, Colin Grant. That's an absolutely top draw strike by Huddersfield Town's January signing.
So today, Fulham are going down today with us. So we're not the only club to get relegated this week. So that doesn't make us look as bad, I guess. But what also is out today as well, Neil, is the Blue and White Foundation Player of the Month, and I tend not to vote too much on this, but I have done this month. I clicked on the reply and I voted for somebody. And do you want to know who I voted for?
I do, yeah, because I'll tell you what I voted for then.
I voted for Carlan Grant.
Wow, did you?
I did. I think he's I've seen improvements in him. I'm still worried Town fans are building him up to be something he's not.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't great against Crystal Palace on Saturday, admittedly. He wasn't great in one or two other games, but I see him improving. I see bits of his game already improving, and he's already got.
I like him, but I actually voted for Bakuna.
Did you? I voted for him last month. Yeah,
I actually voted for Bakuna just on considering where we are and what's happening, purely on effort alone and looking like he actually cares. And when you're in a situation that we're in, and you got senior pros shying away from it in unbelievably brazen fashion.
I think maybe
I think getting a kid like that who looks like he cares and plays like he cares,
looks like a future captain.
Yeah, I think so that's why he got my vote.
Good. I like Junior Bakuna. I think I was slightly swayed, but he was pretty poor against Palace, to be honest, from what I saw. But he's allowed one. You know, he's been really good. He's allowed one. He's young. This is what happens with young players, and this is one of the frustrations I got with Philip Billing, is that he was never cut any slack for being a young, inconsistent player.
But
probably
he's
because of his
shown
attitude.
bits and pieces, Bakuna, where you think. And another one bought too soon for this season. The project that we shouldn't have been having for this season, but looking to next season could be decent at that level. And then obviously watching the West Ham game, the two goals that Grant got, completely different style of goal. The second one really excited me.
Yeah.
The way he rolled defenders, knocked it to the
confidence.
side. He's surrounded by 4 or 5 West Ham players. He had the confidence to roll one, turn, and then just stick it in top corner. That just shows a lot of promise for next season.
I was flicking around Sky the other day and I accidentally came across football. Well, not accidentally, but just came across Football Gold, and I kept it on for. I don't always watch other football on Sky because I hate football at the minute. So because we're rubbish, and there was a semi-final. It was Southampton versus Man United, I think, in an FA Cup semi-final from a few years ago. It might have been. I can't remember who they were against. And there was a goal scored by Manolo Gabbiadini, whereby the ball came into him. He had his back to 2 defenders inside the box, and he managed to swivel. And it's a really good goal. He managed to swivel and volley it with his left foot into the corner. And I couldn't.
That in League Cup final, that.
It was either in the FA Cup semi-final or
It was
a
League Cup final. They lost to
yeah.
Man U at League Cup.
Yeah, it was something.
And then they
like
sacked Puel.
that. I don't mind him.
They finished 8th, got to the final of that and sacked him.
It's the bit.
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah. But yeah, he scored a great goal. Obviously didn't do much the season after, but I was watching that and I couldn't help think, if that's Mounier or Depoitre, they just look to hold that up. They don't think that. And what I was thinking was, somebody like Karlan Grant is probably thinking, how am I going to score?
How can I score? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what excites me about Karlan Grant.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to be done with him. There's a lot there, but there's a lot there to work with at the same time. And I don't want to get too built up on him, because he will have bad games, he will have good games. But what I've seen from him in the last month is really positive.
I'll tell you what's a great stat as well that Town put out. Dave Threlfall-Sykes put one out.
I'm gonna give props to this
it's credited Nonsense
good.
HCFC.
Good.
He has credited him,
Good.
rightly so, that Grant is the first ever player to score a senior goal in the top 7 divisions of English football.
See,
what a stat that is.
This is the kind of quiz question that I want us to be part of, not who got relegated before April.
Yeah.
So that's a great one. So, that's 1-1, so I'm happy with that.
So Nonsense HCFC.
Credit to Nonsense.
Yeah,
at
cracking bit of stat that, and well done to Town for publishing it and giving the credit where it was due as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Dave always does that. He's top man.
Nothing worse than people who pinch tweets and take them as their own, is there?
Do you know what I do? Sometimes when I see this, I think I'm sure I've seen that before. I'll just copy it and then paste it into it, and there's like 20 people who've done it, and you just think, come on.
Yeah.
And I always laugh when people always post those pictures of who did this ! You did it, you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like yours.
Just give people
phallus.
credit. Just retweet.
Yeah. Right. So, I like your blue and white foundation thing. You like mine. Good work. Pats on the back all round.
All round.
If I'd be interested to know who else other people voted for as well.
I would
if there's
actually.
any other note. Yeah, I'd be interested, because
The only other one who was possibly in with a shout that month for me were Stankovic.
Yeah, the Stanker man. Didn't mention this earlier, but Congolo was from the bits I saw. Congolo was really, really good against Crystal Palace. Thought he was really good. He's worth mentioning. That
He plays playing for a move, surely.
Yeah.
Lindelof misses his header. Depoitre's in. Round De Gea. 2-0 Huddersfield Town. 2-0 Huddersfield Town. A defensive slip by Lindelof. And Laurent Depoitre, the big Belgian striker for Huddersfield Town, has taken his chance. And how? 2-0. Town lead Manchester United.
Moving on to that, Congolo, Moy and Depoitre have all had questions put over their future. Moy linked with Newcastle, which sparked hilarity with them saying he's not that good. Terence Congolo has been linked with Fenerbahce today. That's why I found the amortization stuff interesting, wondering what he would go for, and if he does go for less than we paid, maybe we shouldn't be as disappointed as what we would be on the face of it.
Yeah.
Because there's still 13.5 million left. It's almost, honestly, it's like buying a car. This.
Yeah, it is.
And Laurent Depoitre, I'm not sure. I don't think the club have confirmed it, but is it the Examiner who maybe popped out?
Let's be honest, he's not getting anywhere near 18.
It was,
he's not
it was
getting
obvious,
it extended,
wasn't it?
is he?
It was obvious, but
He doesn't deserve it extending. It's as simple as that, regardless.
I don't think he wants.
No, I don't think he'd want to, but even if he did,
he's not having it.
He's no, absolutely
so Depoitre's confirmed as going.
Thanks for the memories off your pop.
Yeah, we'll always remember that goal at
Man U,
at Chelsea and Man United.
Man U, Leicester at home.
Yeah, and one
Chelsea.
of my favourites is a Tommy Smith cross and Depoitre heading it in down at St Mary's, where we actually came back from one down. Very rarely do we come back from
it's
one
easy
down.
to remember all the goals because they never scored many.
It's five.
It's
five. We could probably name it.
Yeah. The other one were away at Watford, a cracking finish.
Watford. Yeah, 4-1 at Watford. That was a cracking day as well. But it gets. I think partly why Laurent Depoitre is quite well remembered is because of the goals he scored. He got the goal at Chelsea. He got the one against Man United. That away trip at Watford was our first away win in about 3 months since Crystal Palace, I think. So he scored some key goals. So I think that kind of makes him a bit more endearing than maybe Steve Mounier, who got, to be fair, he's got some big ones against Crystal Palace and Brighton last year.
Yeah.
But I think Man United is a special day.
Man U's always going to stand
and
out.
Chelsea, Man United and Chelsea,
and the goal that actually kept you up. It's going to, It takes some beating them.
So I don't want Laurent Depoitre at our club next season, but I'm happy that he's played for us during last year.
And his song's great.
Yeah, but Donald McDermott had it first.
Yeah, but Donald McDermott were crap.
In fact, the first time I heard that was Maxi Rodriguez at Liverpool.
Yeah.
Maxi Rodriguez, but there we go. So we'll finish off by going to Twitter. So I've tried to push in most of the stuff there. I stuck out a meme. I thought I'd try and be down with the kids and stick an Ed Miliband meme in there, which didn't
get
liked.
Kids / Ed Miliband. You failed there.
Oh dear! I should have put a bacon sandwich in there somewhere, shouldn't I? So I could do with one of those right now, actually. So let's go to Twitter and we'll fly through some of these. The reason I put this one by Terrier Blog at the end rather than at the start was because I thought it'd be interesting to get the financial stuff out of the way, and then maybe we'd look at this slightly differently. In that, Terrier Blog, don't worry, you're not Whopper of the Week this week, despite that video that I retweeted.
Despite
extreme
that
whopperage.
Absolute top whoppering job that you did with the interview with Chief Whopper Welton. Don't do that again. Consider yourself reprimanded. Do not do it again. Blake the Whopper Welton is not welcome of any kind of comment on Huddersfield Town Football Club.
Unwelcome Welton. So he's tweeted and said, "You're Jan, you sell Moy, Billing and Mounier for a combined 40 million. Dean Hoyle allows you to reinvest all of it. How do you spend it?" And I think Danny Ledger kind of preempted a little bit of it by saying striker, all of it. But yeah, I'd like us to go to goals are so key for us. We've gone through, people know goals are important. We need to be able to have a front three that can fire next year.
And we can't rely on Carlin Grant to do everything.
No, he's a young player who's going to be in and out.
Yeah.
We need, if Mounier goes. Because he's going to the African Cup of Nations next year, I'm erring to the side of sell if somebody comes.
If you'd have asked me last summer, I'd have been disappointed if he'd have going.
Yeah.
This summer.
I still think, when I watch him, a run of 2 or 3 games scoring and he'll catch fire.
I've said it all season, but it just never happens,
it just doesn't happen.
No.
Yeah, it just doesn't happen. But you kind of hope down at what people will class as an easier level, but it's not, because the physical side, and sometimes he's not always up for that physical battle. But you would hope that if he got on a little run, then all of a sudden there's a different player there. He's still only young, 24, and he's not had. I think we bought him after 1 year at was it Montpellier we got him from? Somewhere in the south of France, wasn't it? Yeah. So he's only had 1 proper year there, so he's still relatively green. If you
watch
like.
this space, we'll see what happens.
But we'll see. But yeah, so Danny's got it. Attacking options, if we have it, but we've got to think. What's our budget going to be like next year with the money and the amortisation? But anyway,
it all depends on who goes. We don't know who's going. We don't know what money we're going to get in. We don't know what the budget's going to be. We don't know who's going to be buying the players.
Yeah,
there's so much up in there at the moment. It's impossible to say.
We get quite a lot of questions about who. We've got some later on about who should stay, who should go. I think what we'll probably do towards the end of the season is have, or maybe in the summer, is probably have a bit of a breakdown of who we did. I think I did it 3 weeks ago as well. Who I would bring in and who I would let go and whatnot. And we'll probably do, when things become a bit clearer in the summer, we'll probably do a bit more on that and probably dedicate a show to, or a session if you like, to it. So the guys in the good books are not at Nonsense HTAFC. They've mentioned to us, well, not mentioned, but they've tweeted and said the realistic ambitions for next season and the patience from the fans. I think that's a really good point. If the likes of Diakabi stay, I'd be prepared for Jan Ziva just to tell him, you started my first 10 games, go show us what you can do. The club board will be patient. But
I'm going to echo what Cozzy's been saying for weeks, to be honest.
He also says mid-table is fine, in his opinion.
Yeah, next season, it'd be great to challenge, and it's a chance to challenge. But that said, it'd just be nice to rock up and know that going 1 down doesn't finish game for you, and you're in a game and you can score a goal and you can win a game. Absolutely. Just to be excited again. Because let's be honest, this season has been grim.
In the Championship under David Wagner, we weren't great at that either.
But we were solid and we won games.
Yeah. If we went 1 up, you knew it was the other way. You knew
absolutely
you sat there with your feet up, just like flicky V's.
And it'd just be nice to be see a team with a bit more sort of bravado and a bit more
swagger.
Yeah, and have a go at teams. You know, get us off the seats. And if we let goals in, if it costs us goals at the other end, so be it. I'd much rather win or lose 4-3 than get dragged.
As long as we're not 3-1 up with 15 minutes.
Absolutely, but you know what I'm saying. Just to get the excitement. I mean, Cozzy's been banging this drum for weeks. He's bang right.
He just wants to have a few beers and have a good time, doesn't he?
And that's what it's all about.
That's what most people want.
That is what it's all about.
I'm prepared. I think next season, I've said this a few times as well, and I think there's a sorting job to do for Jan Ziver. He might be lucky in that he can move a load on over this summer, but we're not going to get every transfer in right over the summer as well. It's important to remember that one player I would like us to go for, and we almost got him a few years ago, but Stuttgart came in and gazumped us at the last minute, was Simon Terodde. He was in the building. I know somebody who was talking to him in Canalside. He was there. He was almost ours. This year he's got 30 goals in 26 games, and the rumour is if FC Cologne, isn't it, Cologne, if they get promoted, they will look to sell him, and he's close to being the top all-time Bundesliga 2 goal scorer with, I think he's got 116. And he's 31, but I look at him and think he'd be great for 12 months on loan.
Yeah,
he'd be absolutely fantastic at that level.
Grant and Diakabe.
Yeah, he's a late bloomer. He's almost like a German Ricky Lambert in that the older he gets, the better. And he's somebody I would, if Colin want him, we don't get him. It's as simple as that. But if he becomes available, I would be like, get in there. Yeah. Off you go. He's 31. You know, there's not too many Bundesliga teams going to take a gamble on that. Championship teams would, I'm sure, but get in there. USA Terrier says top 6 has to be the aim, surely. I think after 2 years, that's what I think, but I think it might take 12 months to sort this out. And if it does, fair enough. I want a manager to be able to sort it, because we've seen at Norwich, Daniel Farke was under a lot of pressure last year, wasn't he, when he went in? He went in similar to Ziver, and managed at a similar level. Yeah. Similar positions. Jan Zievert's finished 4th with Dortmund. I think Farke finished 2nd. But he's taken 12 months to sort that out there. I think Zievert might need a similar length of time, as long as he doesn't start losing his rag. And
as long as he'll get the time from the fans, as long as
we can see it.
You can see a positive progression, and we're entertained.
Yeah,
and it's not too much to ask for. Not after a season where we've scored, however many goals we've got, about 3.
I think I know what USA Terriers. I think it's Chris, isn't it, who runs that. I know what he means. Top 6 has to be the aim. I think it might be, but I think if it doesn't happen at the same time, I don't think we would lose too much sleep. But I think the second year then is really key. I think if we're not pushing top 6,
if we don't get in top 6, it's how we don't get in the top 6.
Yeah, if we're bottom 3, then obviously there's
got to be positive moves forward on the entertainment front, and I'll keep stressing that.
Yeah, so Danny Smith, good lad Danny Smith, has sent a message in as well, which says, what out-of-contract players would you offer deals to? So the out-of-contract players are Lursel, Depoitre, Derm, Williams, and we'll throw in Punchinen and Benson.
Well, I think it's clear to see that Lursel's off, which is
he's
the one that I would have given a contract up. Depoitre, we've just spoken about, thanks for memories off your pot. Williams is a tough one, because
I want to see him now
in that level. If he can get 3 or 4 full 90 minutes in this running now, or at least 60 minutes a game, or be involved heavily in these last 6 games.
He got 10 minutes at Palace, which is a good step.
Yeah, he's got to earn. He's got to work really hard now and earn it, because he's been injury prone. But at that level,
so hard, hasn't he?
At that level,
he's quality.
It'd be really, really good to have about the building.
You've seen how,
and I've probably changed my mind on Danny Williams a bit. I've always liked him, but always sort of, it's the injury thing that's really sort of ground me down and thought.
We've seen how Reading have fallen apart after he's gone. I know others have probably left as well, but I think he was their Aaron Moy. Yeah. He made everything tick. And
Eric Derm, I'll be honest, I'm not bothered.
We've got a 1-year option on him, and to be honest,
I think if he were going to be staying, they'd have done that.
If he was on peanuts, then you'd say, yeah, it'd look good, but I wouldn't imagine he is.
The option, no. Williams, probably.
Derm no.
Losel, no.
Williams.
Punchen, absolutely no. And Benza, just purely because of the fee that's agreed. If he does stay, absolutely no.
Allegedly, we've
not seen anywhere near enough of him to warrant that kind of.
So this has come from the French end. Is that apparently we paid $3.5 million to take him on loan, which would have been a down payment on the rest, which would be $10 million to take him. To be honest, it's a top end championship fee, but looking at,
is he a top end championship player?
That's the question.
We just haven't seen anywhere near enough.
No, he's 22. This is now is the perfect time you'd be seeing him to make that judgment, isn't it?
And when you've got to consider that the budget will be somewhat trimmed from what we have spent last 2 years,
I would rather get a proven Terodde than
100%,
than Benza, and somebody like, I know this isn't going to happen because Southampton and better teams are watching, but someone like Ollie Watkins, for example.
Yeah.
I know it's very unlikely we could probably. I know I've said we want to put the big boy pants on, etc., etc., but he might be very difficult.
Also, got to be realistic.
Yeah,
he might be realistic
but somebody like that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, somebody like the other lad, the Algerian French one who's there. I can't remember his name. Is it Benarama or something?
Yeah,
he's also very, very good.
Although they are getting absolutely spanked tonight.
Yeah. So Dan Peckett. So thanks for your messages as well, Dan. Across the week, not just this one. He said, in your mind, which players stay and which players go. Molly Firth has also sent in a similar question. So again, Molly, thanks for your messages as well in the week. It's very much appreciated. She said, which players do you think will stay and leave in the summer, and opinions of Jan's recent decisions regarding players, realistic expectations for next season, which we've just done, including transfers and players we should go for, which we've also just done.
Yeah.
I think, just going back to Dan's point, Dom Lister as well has said, player by player, now that relegation is confirmed, who do you think will be here next season? We'll probably do that a bit later on. Of the so-called fringe players in our squad, who do you think we should keep and who do you think we should actually sell fine clubs for? Arguably, I would include Williams. That's from Sam. He shoot Coca-Cola. And Mike Terrier 7N2's along the same thing. What kind of... He's along the lines of what will be our policy, youth for profit or players to get us back up and challenge. So I think it'll be a big overhaul. I think there'll be a case of 10 in, 10 out. And realistically, you would say...
Dean Oil's almost intimated there's going to be quite a turnover.
Sievert said the same thing as well. Jan Sievert in those things said there's going to be a turnover. So
Jan Sievert needs a turnover. Because I think there'll be a lot of players scarred by this season. Yeah. And a lot of players who just probably need freshening up elsewhere.
One thing I didn't mention earlier was Christopher Schindler also did an interview after the game, and I didn't really mention this earlier, was the main thing that he said was this has been tough for us in the head.
Yeah.
And that is, a lot of those players are absolutely on
they're burnt
their
out.
Knees.
They're done.
And we need to. They need to move on. We need to move them on, because if they're here next year, we're going to be like Stoke this year.
Yeah, up against it from the start.
Exactly. So they need to go. So I would imagine 10 will go. Lussell's obviously going. I don't think a championship team can afford two goalkeepers, two quality goalkeepers. So I would imagine Ben Hamer will probably start next year, and I don't think he'll move on. He did all right against Palace, to be fair.
Yeah, he did.
Coleman, I'm not sure what will happen, but he's still under contract, so he'll probably be number 2. So I wouldn't imagine a new goalkeeper. Zankra, I imagine, will go. Congolo's been linked elsewhere. Derm will probably go. Flo Hadajanai was linked elsewhere, and he doesn't seem particularly happy. So off you go, Flo.
He don't fit in with Sievert, so he's going.
He's not fitted in with me since day one.
And I'll be honest,
I just haven't.
He's no loss.
No,
without being harsh, he's no loss.
He's no. Derm will probably go. Williams, it'd be a shame. Moy will go. Billy will probably go. Realistically, hopefully they stay. But
I put a list on Twitter the other week, and it was long.
Yeah,
there was some people say there's no way all they'll go. You'd be surprised.
If there's a taker, they'll go.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. And someone mentioned earlier, what players might we struggle to move on? And I think you maybe look at Colin Kwana, but with Colin's attitude, it probably wouldn't be a massive disappointment if we couldn't move him on, because he'll be there next year. And
plus, in the scheme of things,
he's probably one of the nicest blokes.
It costs us less than £500,000. So in the scheme of things, he's very, very cheap.
He'll be on, obviously, with a wage reduction.
And he's probably got a year left if he signed a 3-year deal. So
so
it's not the biggest one that's going to cripple us, that is it?
No, But I wouldn't be disappointed if he stayed, that's all.
The interesting ones for me are people like Kachunga, Chris Lerver,
These
Pritchard.
are the ones that people don't necessarily think about, aren't they? Pritchard, I would sell Pritchard.
I'd sell Pritchard, but in that level, depending how we play, it could be really good.
You know what I've said about Pritchard since day one?
He just don't fit in. There were a chance on Saturday for a breakaway.
And he just doesn't.
It's not happening because
he just
he can't
doesn't do
it
it for me. I've said since day one he was the wrong type of number 10.
And if he plays with three, and as it stands now, we don't play with a number 10.
No.
So if you're going to be playing the 3, Pritchard doesn't fit.
No, he doesn't play. He played wide left Norwich when they finished mid-table, and he was all right. But James Maddison was the real star there, and I was really keen on him. But obviously,
Sievert looks to be wanting 3 quick players up top, and
he doesn't fit.
Pritchard in that, and he's not one of a middle 3.
No, I look at the 4-3-3, and it's very similar to the way Klopp lines up at Liverpool, and they do sometimes play a Lallana in that middle 3. Do you know that a kind of player like Pritchard? But he's good in the middle as well as Pritchard. It's the final third where I get frustrated by him. If he could play in that middle 3 and not be physically, because in the Premier League physically he gets bumped off too much. If he could play in that middle 3 and move the ball without getting bumped off, he'd be great. Let's be, set pieces wise, he's got great delivery. He'd be great. But for me, he's a number 10, and he has to fit a certain system, and he's not fit for us. And maybe it might be best to just
off your ball,
shake hands. Thanks for your effort. He does work hard. Yeah. Thanks for your effort, but you probably need to find someone else who suits you better.
The summer will tell. The summer will tell us a lot of things about where we're going.
Yep. So Mike says lack of director of football. Who's targeting the players for next season? Josh Marsh, not Morris. So not the rugby league twin winger. Danny Ledger said as Rajiv Van La Parra returned because he's been tweeting stuff with his Huddersfield kit on again recently, but he's back. Been seen to for an injury is what I sort of have gathered. So he's receiving treatment here, which is it. So I don't know if it's a back injury. So what we'll do is we'll finish, Neil, not with a song, but just by talking about the next game, Leicester. We don't often do match previews because we tend not to look forward to them. But now we're relegated. I have one question. Where is Abdelhamid Sabiri? Where is he?
Pass.
He's fit enough to play for the German under-21s. Yeah. To be fair, I don't think he started and he didn't do 90 minutes in both games. But I want to see him. He's one player I've thought would be quite good in the Championship if we could get some minutes under him. I really, really want to see Sabiri to sort of gauge, or so Sievert can gauge where he's at. If we don't see him from now to the end of the season, then he's going. Yeah, that's what you can read into it.
Yeah.
But I want to see him because we brought this lad in who was scoring a goal every other game as a very young lad for Nuremberg in Bundesliga 2.
Actually, ironic that his last game for Town was where he played for Germany.
All right, yeah. So,
at Bournemouth, he got injured at Bournemouth and he played for Germany.
He did, yeah.
At Bournemouth. Did
he make his debut against Leicester? Who we've got on Saturday? I don't know. I'm probably making that up off the top of my head. I want to see more minutes for Danny Williams as well. Those are 2 things I want to see. I want to see Sabiri. I want to see Danny Williams. Matty Daly's been on the bench 3 times. I want to see him.
Yeah, and he's playing now.
Yeah,
don't let him watch all the time. Get him in.
Yeah, I want to see him.
Start him, Rowe and Grant up front. Let's get on with it. Why not?
I want to get 20 points. Aaron Rowe's done very well.
We'll start Grant the Poitre Monier then.
No,
there you go, you say.
Too far the other way.
There you go, you say.
Too far
the other way. There you go, you say.
You're going silly now, Neil. You're going silly.
I'm tired, I'm done.
So Mick at 4_candles1 says the last Twitter point today is treat our last 6 games as an extended pre-season. Don't play the likes of Zanka, Punchin and Lossell. No point. They're gone in the summer. Let's get some fringe players blooded in against Premier League opposition because it'll be invaluable. And that's pretty much what we've said as well, isn't it, Neil? So we'll end on that point. Thank you to everybody who's got in touch with us the last week. We'll hopefully be back next week as well, rather than having a 2-week break like we have done the last few times. So thanks for listening, and we'll go out again with that nice little cover version that we started with. Thank you very much.
The sand has almost run through Huddersfield Town's Premier League timer. They knew it was coming. They know it's nearly here now. Confirmation of Championship football for next season. goes the final whistle. Huddersfield Town are down, and down on the ground where their Premier League adventure started in August of 2017.
And the blood will dry underneath my nose,
from the spot.
and the wind will rise up to fill my sails. So you can't doubt, you can't hate, but I know no matter what it takes, I'm coming home. I'm coming home. Tell the world that I'm coming home. Let the rain wash away all the pain of yesterday. He's turned it down.
Danny Ward saves! Danny Ward saves!
Coming home, tell the world I'm coming. Still far away.
I'm looking forward. The Platter's forward. The Platter's got the better. Yes! And Laurent de Platter scores! Laurent de Platter scores!
For the dawn, so you can't doubt.
Aaron Boy! 1-0 Huddersfield Town! 1-0 Huddersfield Town against United!
No matter what it takes, I'm coming home.
Quadra!
Coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home.
Aaron Boy slow strike.
Let the
2-0
rain
Town!
wash
A double for Aaron Boy!
all the
Leads it
pain
straight to
of
Boy again.
yesterday.
What a goal, Aaron Boy! An absolute thunderbolt! Delivered all the way from
My
Australia!
mistakes, I'm coming home, coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home.
Christopher Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend.